Hi, welcome back. So today we're going to add an aim reticle to our HUD. I know it's been a little while since I made any videos. I'm really trying to complete this game series. Hopefully we'll be able to do that in the next month or two. And then we'll have a completed game from start to finish. So this is one more thing that we're going to add to it, the aim reticle. This aim reticle is going to be based off of some customization on your part. Okay, I'll show you what I have set up, and if you've been following along with my YouTube channel and the creation of this game from the beginning, making a wave game, then you'll be able to do exactly what I'm doing here. But if you're going to use this in your own game, you might have to do a little bit of backwards engineering, especially when it comes to getting the position of your aim point. My blueprints are set up so that we can easily find it, and if you're doing this on your own game that you've created or something else, then it might not look exactly the same, but the concept is pretty much similar. So hopefully it's something that you can track down okay on your own. So let me go ahead and demo what it is I'm talking about. Okay. So let me go ahead and hide my face here as well as that, and take a look at our screen here. So basically what this is the blueprint. It's just one single blueprint that we're going to write for this, and we're going to put it into a custom HUD. Okay, so in this case, my HUD up here. All right, and you can see that we have all of our additional things that we're going to pull out here. This should look familiar. This is what we've used to create our weapon trace. So part of this was our weapon trace, and we're going to use that to trace where our weapon is impacting, so that we can use those in part of this calculation to then set up our draw texture for our HUD. Now, let's go ahead and talk about your texture to begin with, okay? The texture shouldn't be that difficult. I don't know if there's a lot of free ones out there, but you can look around. You can also, if you have Gimp or if you have Photoshop, you can create your own crosshair like I did here, or aim reticle. And all I did was I used 3 circles. So basically over here I used the ellipse tool. I created 3 ellipses and made sure that they had the same width and height so that they're actually a circle. And then also set the thickness to 0.5, so it's kind of thin, not really, very obtrusive, very in your face in your on your HUD. And then I made sure that there was no fill. Make sure that there's no fill, okay? Because they'll come by default with a fill in them. They'll look like they won't because it'll be a checkerboard, but it'll be different than the checkerboard that's currently on the screen right here. The other thing is these lines. These lines are easy to create. It works both the same way in Photoshop as it does in Gimp. If you hold Shift down, the Shift button, and then just draw a line using your pencil tool or your paintbrush, whatever you want to use, it'll give you a straight line. Okay. So that's pretty much all I did. And then don't forget, you can go to File, Export in Photoshop, and then quick export as a PNG. You can also do an export as if you want to save it as something else. And then that should go into your file folder, which why I closed it, I don't know. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Okay. And I just put it into an images folder. And here it is, the crosshair. And we'll end up using this crosshair. I had downloaded a set, but didn't like what I had to do to get them to work. So just went ahead and created my own. It was far easier. So anyway, there you go. That's the Photoshop piece of it. And I'm not going to take up much time for that. You can figure that one out on your own. All right, so let's go ahead and see what this looks like. When I jump into the game, I hit play. You'll see that I have a reticle there in the center. It is going to be a little bit off from various distances because of the way we have to clamp it down. But at the aim point, which is important, where we're aiming to, out to a distance, it is more accurate. Okay, so up close, you have to remember to adjust your aim point, and out further, it is more accurate. Now, when you are aiming at a point further than the weapon is actually going to be able to hit something, so basically your range distance, it pops to the right like that. Okay. Oops. All right, so I think you get the general idea there. It does move basically wherever we are aiming, so it helps us aim a little bit better. The reason why I'm doing it this way is because if you just stick the aim reticle into your HUD area, so into your screen here, so that's kind of locked in a single point, you can still use it, but it's only going to be right part of the time, kind of like a broken clock is right twice a day. The aim point for the reticle will be off a majority of the time, but right some of the times. So this will make it a little bit more accurate, not perfect, but better than the alternative. So let's go ahead and jump into this. And I'm actually going to demo this. I hope it's going to work in 5.0. Okay, so the early release version of Unreal Engine 5, basically, I've imported the game into this, migrated it. I have to say I really like the way Lumen works. It's Lumen is pretty good with the lighting. I've played around a little bit with the lighting, try to clean it up a little bit. And if I hit play right now, see that I don't have an aim reticle. All right. So let's go ahead and get this started now. This works the same way in 4.27 or 4.26 based off of whatever you're using. And it should work the same way, I'm hoping, here in 5. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing is in 5, everything's pretty much in the same places. Okay, what I want to do first is I'm going to go ahead and import that texture. Okay, so here's my texture that I want to use. And I'm going to go down here in the content drawer. Now it's because on 4.26 and 2.7 this is constantly there. You don't have to worry about finding it. We could also dock it if we wanted to, but we're not going to. I'm going to go ahead and I created here in my I have my UI folder. This is where my original HUD is. So this HUD that we created for Bellica for this game, it's not really a HUD. It's a widget that we called a HUD, and what it does is it places these images as a widget on top of the existing HUD, okay, the one that's been designated for our game. So what I did is I created a folder called textures, and that's not what I wanted. Let's go ahead and go back, because I didn't create the aim reticle. That's what it was, this folder. So I'm going to create a new folder called aim reticle. Okay, I'm going to put that in my UI so I can find it a little bit easier. And then I'm just going to go ahead and click and drag and drop this into there. Again, it's a PNG, so it should go in pretty easily. And if I go back to my content drawer, this is it. If I double click and open it, you can see that it came in nice and easy, just like that. All right, so I'm going to close that. We're not going to mess with that. All right, so now that I've got that done, the next thing I need to do is in that same folder, actually in that UI folder, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new HUD. Okay. And again, the reason why we're not using the widget HUD that we created is because it's a widget. We actually want to replace the existing HUD that's in the system already. Okay. And I'll show you how to do that here in a minute. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click. We're going to go to Blueprint Class. And then down here in the search button, and this is exactly the same as it is in 4.26 and 4.27. The window looks a little bit different, but there's a search down here. And we're going to type in HUD, and we're going to find the HUD. And we're going to select that. And we're going to name this, I'm going to call it H for HUD underscore, because I took too long. Hit F2, try that again. H underscore, and I'm just going to call this my HUD. It seems to be what everybody out there calls it. I don't know why. We can call it something else, but anyway, just for ease of use and defining it, I'm going to call it my HUD. I'm going to double click and open that up. And once that gets done opening, it's taking an awful long time. All right. Wow, that took forever. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and grab it. I'm going to park it back up here, just like I did before with my other tabs. And so I have this, but I'm going to jump out of that for a second. I'm going to go back up here to my edit. Okay, I'm going to go to my project settings. And then here in my project settings, I'm going to go ahead and did I go to project? I missed project settings. Where's it at? Oh, there it is. What am I doing? Okay, there's project settings. I'm going to go to maps and modes. Wow, something's really running my computer down. And right here where it says HUD class, so it may be, yours may be up like this under default modes. Right now it has third person game as my default mode. I'm going to override that since I'm here. I'm going to put in my game mode that I've created. And I'm also going to hit my down arrow. And right here now you see everything is default set from my game, my BP game mode that I created. And right here where it says HUD, I'm going to find my HUD. Okay. And then, there's no save button or anything. We can just go ahead and close that. So we can double check that by going to Window, go to your world settings and open up your world settings. It'll probably open over here on the right hand side somewhere. And then up at the top, there's game mode. This button is probably closed like this. Hit the down arrow and see that your HUD class has changed to my HUD. Okay. All right, with all that done, let's go ahead and jump back into our HUD. So I'm going to click back on this tab. I'm going to go to the event graph, and then right here, I'm going to delete these, okay? I'm going to delete those. We don't need them. And what we're going to do instead is we're going to create our own blueprint for this. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to right-click, and we're going to create the event, okay? And this is going to be an event, and it's going to be receive, okay? We want event, receive, draw, HUD, okay? And basically, we've got this output pin. Then we've got two additional output pins for size X and size Y, okay? Now, the next thing we're going to do is, and we're just going to demo this real quick so that we can see how everything's working, and then we'll get into actually creating the piece where it reads our impact location. So we're going to pull off from here. I'm going to go out a little ways, and I'm going to type in draw, okay? When we type in draw, we see that in this window, we get a few things that pop up, and here's our HUD. And there's a lot of different things that we can draw for our HUD. Okay, you can just create a material if you want. Material is simple. A couple of other things in here. There's this one called texture. We want draw texture. I'm going to select that. Okay, and then right here where it says texture, I'm going to hit that down arrow, and I'm going to do this now so I don't forget. I'm going to find my circle reticle that I created. So my circle in crosshair reticle. Okay, so it gets me started there. Now the next thing I want to do is make it so that this works, okay? So what I need to do is I need to do a division, and which is going to help me find the center of my screen. And then I also need to put in a subtraction that's going to allow me to kind of modify that a little bit, all right? And that's where the additional programming will come in. I'm going to pull this back just a little bit, okay? And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right click. And since I'm going to be working with floats mostly, I'm just going to go ahead and convert it to a float almost right off the bat, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a division, and we're going to divide. So I'm going to right-click. I'm going to type in div, and I want to divide by float, and I'm not seeing it pop in here. Okay, well that's let's see how this works. That is not what I'm looking to do. Nope. So it looks like I may need to get a little bit more specific here. Okay, there's a float divide. There we go. All right, so on 426 and 427, when you type in float, you should get a choice that says float, divide, float. This is a little bit different in 5.0, so there's a new discovery. But you want the float, divide, float, okay? And this is going to go, I'm going to type that into A right there, and I get that my little converter, okay? I'm going to pull these down a little ways because we're going to end up running these down underneath everything else. Okay. And I'm going to divide it by 2. All right. Now we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. I'm going to hit Control W, duplicate it, make sure there's 0 and a 2 down here. And then I'm going to grab the Y and I'm going to connect that into here. I get my little converter in here. Kind of clean it up so it looks decent. All right. Now the next thing I want to do, I'm going to pull this out further because we're going to end up taking up some space in here. The next thing I'm going to do is I want to do a subtraction, okay? So I'm going to drag this out and I'm going to hit the subtract button and I should get float, subtract, float. And it looks like this is going to be... Okay, what happened? All right, so let's try this again. I'm going to pull out from here, and I'm going to type in minus. All right, how about we type in subtract? On yours, it probably is working a little bit better. I'm still figuring out some of the ways. Okay, so if I get float, I guess it just automatically does it for me. So I'm going to go ahead and just select the subtract there, and I'm going to subtract. I'm going to put a 10 in here. Whoops. I'm just put a whole number 10 in here. I'm going to hit Control W, duplicate that, and I'm going to put this in here, and I'm subtract that there. All right, so now I've got my texture in here. This top one is my X. It goes into screen X. This one, you guessed it, goes into screen Y. Now our width and our height, okay? So one thing I forgot to mention about the textures back here in Photoshop is, and I apologize, is I set this up to be a 192 by 192. So all the numbers I'm working with are going to be 192 based off of that scale size of my reticle, because this isn't really a high fidelity. It's just kind of a thing sticking out there. It's not like I'm looking for high detail. I don't need to take up a lot of space with it. So I did 192 pixels by 192 pixels in Photoshop. All right, and then so with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my screen width 48 by 48. Okay, and this is going to be the scale size that's going to show up on my screen. So if I went with 192 by 192, it's going to be 192 pixels wide by 192 pixels tall. So here I'm picking 48 by 48. That's the scale that I've got based off of my 192 by 192 texture that I created. The other thing that we're going to change, we're going to leave these two as zeros, and we're going to put a 1 down here and a 1 down here. Okay, this is our UV width and height, okay? So there's a little drop down here. We're not going to play with any of this, but if you did want to possibly play around with it, you could, but for this tutorial, we're not going to use those. All right, so now everything should be set up to actually create this and draw this reticle. So I'm going to go ahead and save what I've got. I'm going to compile it. I'm going to save it, go back to my level 1, and hopefully this worked. And it did not. So give me a second, double check what I did here. Yikes, it did it again to me. All right, so I don't know if I did this on purpose or by accident, but right down here, if you followed along exactly as I did, I could have swore I hooked this into A, but perhaps I did not. But anyway, so this needs to be an A, and this needs to be set at 2. I'm not sure why it did that. We have these subtracting at 10. They're both in A. That's up there. And we have our texture in there. Compile it again and save it. I don't know if I just, well, did it not compile? Okay, it did. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and hit play. And there we have it. All right. All right, so you can see now that that reticle is in dead center of where my screen is. As I move around, it's kind of not quite dead center, but it's close to it. All right, so what we need to do now is we need to set up the programming so that this will work, okay? So let's go ahead and jump into my HUD and fix this up, okay? And it's actually going to be pretty simple. So one of the things I'm going to talk for a minute here, and you don't need to necessarily do what I'm about to do, but I want to show you where all this is going to come from. So I'm going to go back to my my character here, okay, and go to my Lieutenant Bellica, and this is going to actually be pulled out of our start firing weapon, our weapon trace function, okay. We're going to use our start and end locations for our weapon trace. We're going to use the line trace by channel, and we're going to break it out as a result so we can use the location of where it's impacting to adjust the way our reticle is seen, okay? So in order to do that, we need to first cast to our character. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to cast to BP, because that's my blueprint for my character, and my character's name is Lieutenant Bellica, all right? So now I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. I'm going to connect that. Actually, I'm not going to connect that up yet because we still need to do some other things. So the object I need to do, okay, we're going to get player character, all right? So we need to get the player character so that we can pull out that information we need to use. So I'm going to pull this a little bit forward here so I have some room. Keep this clean. Now, as Lieutenant Bellica, we're going to pull out, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get weapon, and we want get weapon start location. Okay. Okay, well, it helps to pay attention to what I'm doing. I played around with this a little bit, create some other characters, so I actually cast the wrong one. So we're going to cast to weapon. Nope. Not casting to anything. We're going to get weapon. So this is for Lieutenant Bellica right here. Got to make sure I read it correctly, and we're going to go to our start location. Okay, so there we go. That's why it wouldn't work, because I was trying to pull it from the wrong thing. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and get weapon end location for Lieutenant Bellica. Okay. Now the next thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull these over here out of the way. Give me some more room to work. All right. I'm going to pull out from Bellica, and I'm going to line trace by channel. Okay. And that channel is going to start here with this weapon trace start location, and it's going to end here. All right, so now what I want to do is go ahead and make this connection here. Okay. I'm going to pull out from my out hit, and this is where we're going to break the hit results, so we can break it down to what exactly we're looking for. In this case, we want the location. I'm going to hit the little down arrow here. And this is what I want right here. I want my location. I'm going to hover over that pin. I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to split that struct pin. And now what I'm going to do is grab these here, quickly running out of space. So I'm going to pull these down again. Okay. From the X location right here where we broke this out, so location X, I'm going to pull this out and we're going to clamp because we want to change these numbers. Right now, they're going to be really big numbers, and whenever we move around, they're going to change, okay? So we want to clamp vector size, okay? And this should actually go up here. So we're going to right click here. We're going to split that struct pin. I'm going to hover over where it's connected to right now. I'm going to hold this control button, drag it, and drop it because this is going to go on my X, okay? And I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate this, Control W, and this one is going to go into my Y. And these are the locations where we're going to start playing with these numbers, okay? Now the next thing we want to do is I'm going to go ahead and try to clean this up a little bit. Pull these down a little bit out of the way. And double click right here. Create a pin. Pull this one up. That's my X. Do the same thing here. Double click. Maybe. There we go. And pull this one up. So it's kind of clean. All right. We're going to right click on this return value. We're going to split that struct pin, and we're going to right click here, split this struct pin. This is my out return value for my X, and this is my return value for my Y, which is going to go in there. So X and Y, we want to make sure everything lines up. Now, these numbers, these numbers are the ones that I've used, and we're in the demo. I played around with them until I got them kind of doing what I want them to do. They're going to get you in the ballpark, but you may need to do some fine adjustment. At least I hope they're going to get you in the ballpark. Let's see here. So I'm going to put negative 40 for both of these in the X. I'm sorry, negative 40 on the top one and 40 on the max. So min is negative 40, max is 40. Down here, min is going to be negative 80 because this is our Y, and we'll leave the max at 0. This will help kind of control the way that it keep it from popping around when we're going up and down. All right, so with all of that, that should get us started. So let's go ahead and compile it. Go back to our level. I'm going to hit play. And if I shoot up against the wall here so I can see it, it's a little bit low and to the left. And I will play with that just for a moment to kind of show you how it works. But as it moves out further, it's actually more accurate. Kind of hard to see there. Right there, it's hitting dead center. So based on the distance, it's going to be cleaner. But as we get closer in, it's going to be a little bit less clean. But out to here, right about here, is where we're actually getting very close to center. So this might not actually be all that bad, as I'm getting killed here. All right, spending more time talking than actually paying attention to the game. All right, so that is how we can set this up so that we can use our blueprints to control the way that our reticle works inside of our game so that it kind of moves around. It's not 100% accurate, but it is a lot better than being stationary, and it does adjust and gets better as it moves further out. All right, so that is pretty much it for this video. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments section, and I will try to get back to you. Again, if you're totally put this into a custom game, you're pulling this in from something else, I may not be able to help solve all your problems, but I'll definitely give it my best guess. But if you're following along with the wave game that I created here, this should work pretty well for you. Again, if you liked what you saw, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next time.